Hey, everybody. Welcome to I'm Possible Live. Welcome back if you're joining us today. And today you are in for another amazing, delicious, rich treat. I'm very excited. People don't know I'm excited because I'm wearing yellow, but I'd love to introduce you to our amazing guests today. And you'll notice we have two rich, wonderful guests joining us. And the first guest is amazing Stacy, who I had the pleasure of meeting in Equa Kant's amazing community. And Stacy was this bright, mm, cheerful voice in a world where we don't always find that joy. So, Stacy, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and introduce Paul when you have a chance, but let the world know a little bit more about Magical Stacy.
Thank you so much, Mel. I am so honored to be here. It's an absolute delight. I have watched some of these before, like last week, and the topics are so empowering, and the space is just a beautiful space. So, everybody, I'm Stacy Casson. For those of you that can't see me, I'm a very tan woman. I am wearing bold tortoiseshell glasses. My purple salt and pepper hair is pulled back. I have on sunflower earrings, a floral dress with a black jacket. My background is a living room with a piano. No, that's not my house, but that's okay. I am a creative coach. I coach people with intuitive tools and I like to keep it fun. So I use Pokemon cards quite a bit of the time. And I just ask powerful questions to get people to be empowered, our theme today, to find the answers. I have invited Paul Reek as our ASL interpreter for the day because I think serving our community and building the world that we want to see means just making that happen. So that's why it was really important to have a deaf interpreter so that that part of the community can feel welcome and empowered as well.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. What Stacy didn't tell you was we met on a day that wasn't a sunshiny day for me. And Stacy was just this wonderful, beautiful, bright light reminding us to show up with love, with kindness, with courtesy. And I'd love to just welcome our guests who are joining us. Welcome back, Adrian. Welcome back, Caron. And welcome, Patricia, to Impossible Live. Stacy, where should we start with this amazing song that you introduced me to that every time I'm listening to it, I hear something new or I read something new in the lyrics. What inspired, and you're doing this during Black History Month, so thank you for the timing. But uh, let us know how you picked and selected this beautiful song.
Well, no, there's been a lot of heaviness around the world, in the community, and a lot of people in my circles sometimes feel helpless. They feel that nothing that they're doing is making a difference, it's making a change. And I think part of the reason is they want us to feel that we are not, that we are powerless so that we don't try and make this change. So I've always loved this song, We've Got the Power. And I love that the message is about love and about community because, yes, if you're trying to do everything all by yourself, I mean, it's not I've got the power, it's we've got the power. We got the power to do that together as a community. And I feel that that's two of the messages. How I work is in collaboration with other people because we learn from each other and share insights and innovations and discover together. And it's a playful song. As you know, I am all about play, I'm about fun. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to imagine having fun with all of the things that are happening out there. And joy is a form of resistance. I would have to look up who said that. I had to look it up the other day, but rest is resistance. That's Trisha Hershey in the Nat ministry. But joy is resistance as well. And that's why I love that song, because it's so high energy and joyful and encouraging. And I think that's what we need in these times.
You so reminded me of being appreciative that Lori Ostrovsky introduced me to the ministry. Some would say I'm the queen of naps. I have a shirt that says Nap Queen on it. But I love what you're saying because I think, and you're helping build on a theme that we started developing recently, which is that we don't always feel like we have the ability to shift into joyful spaces. I talk about it from the perspective of positive intelligence and being a positive intelligence coach, and that we have the narratives or the saboteurs that we have to, mm, some would say overcome, I would say acknowledge, really understand why they're there, understand what emotions they're helping us build up. But I love about your message of what's happening in the world, and Jen saying it really well. So thank you so much, Jen, for popping in to join us. Is Jen saying joy is absolutely resistance when certain groups are trying to bring chaos and fear? And I think what happens is we sometimes, like you're saying, we need to acknowledge somewhere in us there's an opportunity to change the channel or pause it. One of the things I love too about our conversations and about some of Stacy's amazing content that you can check out on LinkedIn, and for our guests who are joining us on replays or who are on Meta or on YouTube later, please check out Stacy's amazing content. She's got this fabulous light about her, and that light reminds us to kind of show up at our brightest. We forget that sometimes in the anger, as Coach Alpha helped us explore last week. We forget that in the frustration, in the this doesn't feel like it's going my way. This doesn't feel like it's working right now. But the reminder to shift, and the shifting into the joy mode. But I love it because in your profile, you remind us it's an opportunity to show up with creativity.
Yeah, creativity is definitely a way to be empowered because you're making something with your own two hands or imagination. And creativity is also empowering because nobody can take that away from you, what you have made, what you're building upon. That's a little bit of control over your world, a little bit of, hmm, I don't have, as my friend and coach Yinka Awala would say, I don't have the resources, but I am resourceful. And some of the most empowering times in my life have been when we employ creativity. Many, many years ago, when I was a young parent and we were playing pantry roulette, and I said, I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, we're even thinking maybe I have to go to a food bank, but we looked in the cupboard and said, okay, what do we have here? How can we get creative with this? And I still remember that week as the week that we just had the most delicious food. And we did that. And it was so empowering. It brought some fun and adventure instead of, oh, woe is us. It's like, oh, wow, look at what we did. And it helped us to keep that mentality going forward when we've had challenging times. I live in Florida, so we have hurricanes and sometimes we lose power. And honestly, some of my hardest times have been the most fun because we had to think outside the box. We had to think creatively. And the last time we lost power, it was Hurricane Wilma, and we lost power for 18 days. But it was 18 days where we had conversations, we played with our kids, we went outside, and all of us were a little sad when the power came back. I mean, I'm not missing air conditioning, that was nice, but we were a little sad because it was a really special time, and it was because we leaned into the adventurous side of it, into the curiosity, into that play, that we became empowered through creativity.
18 days without power. Wow. And as a parent, and I think I love that sometimes most about some of your content is the conversations that you're having with your children. The reminder, there's always another listener, there's always another ear, a real reminder that how we show up can get translated, can get absorbed, whether it's uh, giving them the permission to discover joy, or to find a new way to approach a situation. But 18 days without power, what were some of the things with curiosity that you were able to encourage your children to explore?
Mostly games. We do like games and new ways of preparing food, new things to eat, because we did have a little grill. So it wasn't that everything was tinned food or non-perishables, but it was about how do we solve this problem solving. We introduced our children to problem solving. And also, now you don't have TV, not that we were big TV watchers, but you don't have those electronic distractions. So it became how to become closer, how to pass the time, reading books. I think my husband was reading, I don't know if that's when we started The Princess Bride, but reading books, playing board games together, and listening and exploring to what nature showed us, because sometimes when you're always looking down at your phone, you're not looking up and you're not seeing, oh, there's an owl, or oh, there's a hawk in the neighborhood. And creative ways to pass the time. I think they were probably excited that the power came back, because I would come up with things like, okay, here's 13 words and make a story out of it. And because I don't think school was out those 18 days. So they had school, but it was when they came back. And also learning about myself as a parent. It was one thing when we experienced Hurricane Andrew and my parents had all the mental load. We kids, and my parents taught me by example. We thought this was an adventure. We're going up on the roof to help our dad. And oh, we're going to take a bucket bath. It was an adventure. And as a parent, I recognized how terrifying it might have been for them. They didn't have the answers. They were flying by the seat of their pants. And it strengthened me to think, okay, my parents did this, it's your turn. You have a great example. You can't fall apart. These kids are relying on you, and you are the weather, you are the example. So what world are you going to create for them? And I chose wonder, I chose joy, I chose fun. I'm not a negative person by trait, and I'm not talking about toxic positivity. It was hot. It was not fun. We opened the windows. It was challenging to get to sleep sometimes, but it outweighed, sorry, the challenges were outweighed by that community and the love, and again the adventure. So it's kind of like this proverb, there's two dogs and the bigger dog gets fed. And I mean, some people be like, why can't you just feed both the dogs? But if you have limited resources and you have to make a choice, you can feed the joy dog or you can feed the anger dog. And I'm by no means perfect. Mel knows I when we started this, I said I'm so nervous. And she said you don't have to be nervous. And I know I was nervous because I care about doing a good job when somebody puts their trust in me. And I was okay with that. Okay, you're nervous, and the nerves is your body preparing you to do this thing. I There was this really wonderful talk by Jane McGonigal, and she was talking about making stress your friend, and that was a game changer for me. In her talk, she mentioned a lot that people actually get stressed about being stressed. And you're not going to avoid stress in this life. There's good stressors, there's more challenging stressors, even joyful moments. It's your birthday or you're getting married, but that's still a stressful event of planning a party, planning a wedding, or even something like, what are you going to cook for dinner? I mean, I'm just overjoyed that I have choices now compared to that week. I can choose and decide in advance what I want to cook for dinner. What a privilege. It's all about the mindset. And I lost my train of thought, and that's okay as well because I'm a human being. And that is what I try and showcase to the people in my life, that it's not about perfection. And like Bob Ross would say, the painter, those happy little accidents, those are the things where you make those discoveries and innovation. So that's, I lost my train of thought, Mel. You got to reel me back in.
Actually, you're going in wonderful, beautiful places, and you're taking some of us in our comments or our experiences to what it was
Sweet.
like, not only for our parents, but what it was like for us as children. I remember losing power when we lived on the sixth floor of an elevated building. That that losing power and being on the sixth floor, I remember falling in love with candles because the first time we lost power, I I think my mother somehow had wax pellets from from a game that I had, and we ended up melting the wax from the candle game, and and somehow turning that into light. But I remember from it, I've always fallen in love with candlelight. It meant a time of magic, a time of discovery. So I think, just like you're saying, how we're approaching things when sometimes we don't feel like we have the power. And Jen and Caron and Christy, others who are in Florida are really sharing your your feeling. So I think I think the thing to from that perspective of stuff changing is the reminder that it's our approach that can change to how we respond to it. The mindset part, and people will laugh at this because as a positive intelligence coach, I think before this I kind of was allergic to the word mindset. I just thought that we needed to shift somehow by being fully present, tuning in somehow to a gratitude bone almost, to really acknowledge and say hey, and uh Ileana's here, so thank you so much for joining us. And she's fallen in love with Paul. So it's a really good reminder. It's sometimes how we approach it, what we're looking at, how we're looking at the situation. And Jen's reminding us, we don't think of how hard it is for our parents when they're trying to figure out a new way to help us approach locating resources or the energy or the creativity to really explore with power. But I love what you're saying also about wonder. I have been a fan for over a decade of Jeffrey Davis of Tracking Wonder, who encourages us lean in with curiosity. But I think it's a combination of the wonder, your encouragement to really be creative how we approach it, and the reminder too of the clarity part, because sometimes we're not comfortable sharing our discomfort, and sharing that how it's making us uncomfortable, we can somehow help others tap into something that later will become a reserve or a resource for them when they're discovering their power.
Yeah, when you're talking about leaning into being uncomfortable, I had to do a presentation in my day job a couple years ago, and I think it was called "You Better Work the Wisdom of Drag Queens in Public Speaking," and that's how my brain works. And people were like, "What? What are we talking about?" And I'm like, "Just trust the process." And we had our one of our new leaders coming in at this time, and part of the presentation, because this was actually when we did in-person presentations, not Zoom, I put on my clothes inside out on purpose. I don't remember if I wore two different shoes, but my clothes were inside out on purpose. And the message was about, you make yourself uncomfortable at times. Nobody noticed that my clothes were inside out until I pointed it out as part of the presentation. Because where you put your focus is where you direct other people to put the focus. And when you are uncomfortable, I'm not, again, acknowledge it, as we talked about with Coach Alpha last week. Acknowledge the anger, acknowledge the discomfort, but then what will you shift to transform it? Because this is what is. This is how your life is at this moment. And it doesn't have to define you for the rest of all time, eternal. But this is the moment, this is where you're at, and what are you going to do differently? And Coach Alpha was a good one, because I was angry yesterday. I was trying to park. I had my indicator on, and this car came up behind me and wouldn't move. They just wouldn't move. And I got frustrated, and I just pulled around and found a different spot. But my kid was like, "Mom, like, you are unhinged." And it was like, okay, I am. And I learned from them, because they said, "Do you want that person to have real estate in your brain? Are they paying you rent for this anger?" And I said, "No, I don't." And I recognize that this is not where I want to be. And I found a parking spot. That person went on with their day. It's not worth it. And in fact, I guess it still bothered me, because today I was thinking, okay, what's a different way you could have handled that? Maybe put the car in park and go say, "Hey, I'm trying to back in. Can you move?" Maybe in Florida, that's not the smartest idea, but I couldn't undo that situation. I can't go back in time for it, but I absolutely can laugh at it now. And it was a teachable moment for myself. And like you said, the other ears, granted, my kid is a grown adult, but it was still a moment where we influence and impact the people around us, and we model our faults. We model how to be human to other people. I am part of the sandwich generation. I have older parents, and they have their needs, and it's trying to be compassionate because life is changing. And I don't love change. I fought change kicking and screaming. And it's been a process about, well, why don't you like change? And it's because it's a lack of control, and I don't know how to do it. And then I'm not going to be that straight A student anymore. And so what? You have given birth and shown everyone your hoo-ha. You have gone to work in camouflage gear. You have had just the most ridiculous things happen, and the world didn't end. And nobody is thinking about it at this point, because everyone has their own problems. So why be miserable? I can choose to remain in that. I can choose to dwell on that person that wouldn't move their car, I could let it go, wish them well. I hope everything is okay. What else could have caused that? I mean, could they be a jerk? Absolutely. But I don't know. I don't know what they're going through. They don't know what I'm going through. We didn't have that conversation. So I'm empowered to shift and go a different way, go about my business.
And I think also the decision of the conversation you had with your child who was in the car. And I think sometimes from a safety perspective, important not necessarily to disengage and expose ourselves to those in the world who might not necessarily be aligned or might not be having the best day. I think one of the one of the hardest things about it is changing how we approach it, and whether it's a pattern, because sometimes it depends on our mood that we had previously. It depends on how you're feeling. Sometimes you're parking because you're in a rush, you've got an appointment at a specific time. In some cases it may mean you're late. You could have been parking because you were picking somebody else up, but I think it's an opportunity to remember we're not necessarily sure what's happening with someone else from their perspective of being aware. And some people are less aware, they're less observant. The person who might have been so close to you that they didn't see your turn signal. And in which case, I may be glad because I'll meet beautiful Stacy in 5.5 weeks. But I may be really glad they didn't have an opportunity to meet you yesterday. We were watching a new program last night that I wasn't really, actually, it was on Saturday. We were watching a new program I wasn't quite prepared for. My mindset, it was a new show. Sometimes you'd approach that with excitement, and I was just like, okay, this is kind of a heavy show. This is not something I'm going to look at night. It's something I'll look at during a day, and I'll look at it on a day when it's a lighter, brighter day. Because when I choose to watch this show is really going to change my mood. Had some less than positive images, less than positive stories. It's an actress I like. And you know what? The topic was of interest enough. It was, for those who are curious, it was called The Hunting Party, and there's a character in it from, the series Manifest. And I would watch just, she's a cool actress and I just enjoy the vision. But it is really a reminder sometimes that person who's less aware, in some cases, in whether we're in corporate setting, we're in a business setting, sometimes that person who's less aware, they're the person in front of the room who has the power. They're the leader, they're the emerging leader, they're the person arranging materials. We don't know it, but maybe they're working on multiple projects, and maybe they're working in the past, in the present, and they're thinking ahead to something they need to do in the future. So their heads are full. But I think that part of what you're saying is that we each have a different vision. Your child had a different vision. Somebody on the street might have been like, "Hey, what's up?" But I think the awareness piece to it from people who are in charge, and that person behind you, they weren't in charge of you and your vehicle, but their proximity made them in charge. So I think you showed a lot of patience by picking a different spot and letting your child say, "Hey, mom, maybe it is an opportunity to have another observation about something that we can learn." Or and maybe it is really a decision how you respond to it, because you could have been totally ticked off and that really would have changed your Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I could have just reversed into them in anger, but that's like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Because really, I mean, there's so many different ways we could have responded to that situation. I mean, angry me in my head, it was just like, yeah, just reverse. And it's like, and your car would be damaged too. And and you could be injured and the other person could be injured and you really would be disappointed with yourself. That's not a good look for your kid to see either, of how you chose to handle that situation. And I can laugh at myself. I mean, they would probably make fun of me, which is fine. I think growing up with kids, you have to learn how to laugh at yourself. And because sometimes you're the problem. My husband, one day, he just started walking around me in circles. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, obviously the world revolves around you. In good humor. I said, "Oh my goodness." I'm very self-absorbed at times. It's, again, it's a process. I have recognized that I can make life all about me and not think about other people. I'm the person that the kids make fun of me, that I thought it in my head and you guys must have heard it. And I said, "Nope, you didn't say anything out loud." And that's okay. It's a quirk. It's sometimes lovable and sometimes like, no, this is really not cool. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be somebody that everybody's on eggshells because the world revolves around me. And we need to make space for other people's. We need to make space for different viewpoints because we don't have all the answers by ourselves. If I just planned something and I never knew that there were people that had other needs to be successful, this would probably be a different meeting, a different webinar. But when we think about who's not in the room, who is not like me, then we have a different conversation. I am an artist as well. And I was thinking about how to help people get into art in a way that was accessible and not terrifying. And they didn't have to feel as if they had to be Picasso. I just wanted them to have fun. And I said, well, what if I didn't have arms? How could we create? How would that work? And I went outside and lay down a tarp and put the art equipment on the ground. And okay, I had control over my legs and I made this piece and I said, okay, it's a little messy, but it's doable. And I showed the piece to somebody and they were like, there's so much pain in here. Can I have this piece? I didn't even know that was going on. And at the time when I was done with it, but somebody else looked at it and saw it in a completely different way. And it was interesting. I think when we let our ideas out into the world, when we are vulnerable out there, we show other people that, hey, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have all the answers, but maybe together we can come up with something new, something different. I don't know why I'm so angry, and maybe just talking through my kid would help. Like, why aren't this was such an outsized reaction for a parking incident? And they're like, are you hungry? And I said, I am a little hungry. I mean, I was a little hungry, but I think some of it came from looking at the world and this steady diet of news stories about all the ways that were not necessarily powerful. And I think I can't take it out on the people that are making me feel this way, but this person behind me, they're they're in the way of my parking. And again, so what? I'm not that important. It's the parking spot didn't say Stacy Casson on it, right? And they might, like you said, they might have been too close and didn't see my indicator. So it's also thinking about how did we get to this point? Because it doesn't come out of the blue. It's many little tiny steps. And so I said, maybe it's time for a social media break. It's time to lean into playing with my family. We do like to play games, and that's exactly what we did. And I'm just in a different headspace after that. It is taking action, making phone calls or writing a letter, doing those things that empower you. Drawing. I've been doing this challenge every day to paint the same cup. And some days I'm like, oh, I don't have time to do this challenge. But I promised somebody accountability. So having accountability partners that I would do this. And I'm noticing the growth from doing this challenge because when we sit in that discomfort, when we look at things and say, this isn't how I wanted it to be, but we don't have to look at it as I failed, I am worthless. No, it's I've learned another way that didn't work, or I see how this could have been better. And building that feedback culture amongst your coworkers or even amongst your family. So now my kids are, the youngest, are starting to learn how to cook, and they make the food. And what do you think? And it's like, this is very good. And then they like, well, what could make it better? Right. And they this has become second nature to them. Now they want the feedback. They they don't take it as, oh, I'm a failure because this wasn't a 10 out of 10 recipe. It's more, okay, I did this and I'm really happy because I've gone from not cooking to making something that's an 8 out of 10. That's pretty good. That's a win. What could I do differently? And now they want to learn how to do it. They don't want someone to take over for them. So I see that sense of empowerment, and it takes a little longer. So if you're in the workplace and you're trying to teach somebody a process, you can have job aids and thinking about how do people learn? Do they learn through lecture? Do they learn better on their own? Are they somebody that needs to do something? So when we're trying to empower people, I think it's you start with empowering yourself to think differently about a situation, and that unlocks and gives other people permission to be a part of the be a part of the process in a collaborative way, because maybe how you understand the process might be different than the person doing the process. Perhaps there's a gap in the explanation. I also empower myself by asking if I heard things correctly, because I know that I am very literal at times. So I'll say, this is what I heard. Or sometimes asking, what did you hear me say? Because I think sometimes people interpret what you meant differently. And I'm glad when people speak up, because then it's like, oh no, that's not what I meant at all. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you for that feedback, because now I understand how this could have been interpreted in that way. And going forward, I can think of more expansive ways of communication.
Wow, I love that. And really just a reminder, shifting takes time. And sometimes also really being really conscious of where our thoughts, where our intentions were before something happens to kind of change them. So whether it is, as you're saying, it's a time of self-involvement, or maybe you're just really deep in thought because something is really important to you, or you got a lot on your mind. And and sometimes I really understand that as an introvert, from the perspective of like head down, really deep into a project. I can almost and really relate to your 8 out of 10, as tonight I prepare one of my 10 out of 10 meals. I'm roasting a turkey tonight for my turkey holic, and it's the best way to say thank you. And at the same time too, to allow enough time. So there's 4 hours for you to wait before you have dinner. I'm not the short order cook. And the real reminder that those who have the power to just go from, we're starving, to all of a sudden everybody's really good and he's back. There's a talent in that. I think the thing too that I absolutely love about the word power is I was afraid of it. I had um, no real definition years ago of power. I didn't understand the concept. I I could possibly say it was partially part of that cool glass bubble of being in a world where many adults would invite us into conversations. As the child of a teacher, you know, the ability to ask a question and show up with curiosity was welcomed, as opposed to sometimes people are really challenged by that. And it took me a really long time to discover, I think, intentional and personal power, and how there are different degrees of it. That sometimes it's something that's welcome, it's something we're curious about, it's something maybe that becomes a part of leadership when people invite us in, or that it can be a part of a really cool collaboration where we're really conscious of each other's power and we really respect personal power or spiritual power or creative power, or those who show up, you know, with an incredible amount of confidence, and they kind of change the energy in the room or in our world. But I think this part, and it was a book, Carolyn Mice book, Invisible Acts of Power, that I still have nearby, because every time I read it, it causes me to redefine power. But I got so in my head about it that I even had a challenge around empowerment. Empowerment didn't necessarily mean uh, the most positive things to me. You know, I think of it too as we're about to approach Women's Herstory Month, you know, and people will say, oh, get ready, get ready. International Women's Day is coming up. There are days where we feel our voices aren't always welcome. There are spaces in which our thoughts aren't always encouraged, and creating more space for them. Stacey, I have to really thank you and thank Paul for that reminder to really hold safe and sacred spaces so others can show up in a way that really allows them to express who they are. Because otherwise, we don't really hear each other, we don't really see each other. And I love that your children are encouraging you. Hey, mom, what's up today? You know that you know, back in my day, if I asked my mom what was causing her to have a kitten, oh boy, we found my mom found a picture decades ago that age when my brother was still like hanging on to mom. You know, you see my cousin playing right next to her, and you see my brother in front of her. Well, the one thing I noticed about this picture was whoever was in the room speaking, not necessarily her favorite person, or they said something that she couldn't respond to in front of her children. You know, but I could just see it's one of those old, you know, pictures. Mom's got cat eye glasses on, you know, she's still dressed, looks like she came from work or came from church. But whatever's happening, I think that's the one part about we got the power. We have the power to invite each other into each other's circles, to encourage others to come in. As you, I'm so delighted to welcome Paul to the I'mPossible Live family today. You know, it takes a village, and you're really reminding us of that, Stacy, of being conscious of how we show up in that village, and whether it is with clarity, with creativity, with joy, with love. I love the invitation, and I'm grateful that, you know, the Yinka, Coach Yinka, the Equa circle kind of brought us together, and truly delighted because in a little bit I'll be around Stacy's Magic live and in color, and I'm looking forward to meeting, you know, more of your wonderful family. But Stacy, for you, where is a good place for others to connect with you other than LinkedIn? We have your LinkedIn profile there, but are there other places you want us to show up and support you? And do you have upcoming workshops or events that we should know about?
LinkedIn is the best place to get a hold of me. That is where I post consistently. I am on Instagram, but I really don't post there because I have beef with Meta and their parent company. But anyway, LinkedIn is the best place to find me. All of my contacts are there. I don't have an upcoming workshop. I'm testing out a new platform called Graphy to, and I haven't, I'm learning it. So it's a stepping back moment, but I do play shops. I don't believe in workshops because we work enough. So any event that I do is a play shop. I am testing out Graphy for the moment, but if you have a need, just reach out to me because I believe that we should meet people where they're at. I don't have cookie cutter programs. I don't have a magical thing that's gonna follow this and you'll be okay. But I do have my the play shops, which is a place for people to come and collaborate together through play and creativity. But you can do that one on one with me as well and my Pokemon cards or whatever makes you happy, random pictures. But LinkedIn is the best place to find me, and that's where I post about any upcoming workshops, sorry, play shops, or talks or lives. So LinkedIn's the best place to find me.
We will definitely stay in touch there. And I'm smiling as I'm learning more about Graphy too, thanks to Bill Carmody of Positive Intelligence. And Bill's deep in a series of monthly presentations and webinars that he's giving there. I just want to say thank you, Stacy, for popping in and bringing your amazing magic, and to Paul for bringing another touch of class and elegance to I'mPossible Live. I'm really delighted as we're about to celebrate our third anniversary, and the reason why I do this usually weekly is my first guest reminded me of a passion for inclusive leaders, and I want to thank you for helping us to open up our hearts today, our minds, our spirits, and for really bringing us a lot more joy today. But really just want to say thank you for being here. And to our friends on LinkedIn, thank you for the patience, because LinkedIn's a little iffy today. So if you're going live or having another event, make sure you have a good beverage nearby because it's a little for a little bit. I knew Stacy and Paul and I were here, and we weren't sure the rest of you were here, but we want to thank you for popping in to join us today for We Got the Power. The link to this song is in the chat in the threads. Marie, my sister from another mother, thank you so much for being here today. More positive intelligence, great sage energies with you and Jen in the house, live and on replays. We hope you have a magnificent day filled with opportunities and possibilities. Stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, stay in touch, and take great care. And if you're popping in to join us on a replay, share something magical that you learned today from Stacy. And Paul's reminding me of my interest in learning ASL so I can communicate with a family member and be able to greet him properly when I meet him. So take great care, everybody. Stay well, stay safe, and take a deep breath because, as Stacy says, we got the power. Take great care. Be well.
Thank you.